Today, we're going to talk about those little habits you might have. The ones that can feel a bit odd or quirky. We're going to dive deep into the surprising psychology that shows these habits might not be weird at all. In fact, they could be a sign that your mind is wired in a uniquely complex and really powerful way. You know that feeling, right? Where it seems like you're processing the world just a little bit differently than everyone around you. Maybe you see connections that other people miss, or you think in multiple layers at once. Well, if that sounds like you, you're definitely not alone. And what we're about to discover is that it's not a bug in your system, it's a feature. Okay, so first up, let's talk about a huge shift in perspective. We're going to reframe these habits, moving them out of that weird category and into a new one, wired for some seriously high-level thinking. And this slide really gets to the heart of it. On the left, you've got the common view, that little voice of self-judgment that might label these things as just, well, weird. But look at the right side. The psychological view sees them as signs of high cognitive complexity. It's a total game changer. So what in the world is cognitive complexity? Well, think of it this way. It's a mind that just doesn't do black and white. It's an operating system built for nuance, for holding multiple viewpoints at the same time, and for seeing the intricate web connecting all sorts of different ideas. And the habits we're about to look at, they're the tools this kind of mind uses to get things done. All right, let's get specific. In this next part, we're going to explore 6 surprising habits that show this cognitive style in action. As we go, just see how many of these feel familiar. You might be surprised. First up, a total classic. Do you ever find yourself muttering to yourself while you're working through a tough problem? Or maybe even just narrating what you're doing while you're making coffee? It might feel a little strange, but there is a really powerful reason your brain does this. So there's a name for this: external self-talk. And you're not just talking for no reason. You are literally thinking out loud. You're taking all those abstract, jumbled up thoughts from inside your head and giving them structure in the real world. It's a seriously sophisticated technique for managing a mind that's juggling a ton of information at once. What about this one? You've got a tricky problem to solve or a big idea you need to flesh out, and you just cannot sit still. You find yourself getting up, walking back and forth across the room. That's not just restless energy, you know? This connects to a really fascinating concept called embodied cognition. The basic idea is that your mind isn't just locked up in your brain. Your body is a huge part of your thought process. Pacing literally gets your blood flowing and fires up the neural networks you need for creative thinking. You're actually physically fueling your brain for the hard work. Okay, now for a habit that happens completely inside your own mind. You're getting ready for a tough conversation, or maybe just thinking through a belief you have, and you play out this entire debate in your head, complete with different perspectives and counterarguments. This is an incredible skill called cognitive simulation. You're basically running a mental stress test. A complex mind doesn't just take ideas at face value. It puts them through the ringer, testing them from all sides. This internal debate is a huge sign of intellectual integrity and even deep empathy, because you're genuinely trying to understand other points of view. Our next habit can feel a little bit like you're the star of your own movie. Ever notice a little voice in your head, kind of like a narrator, describing what you're doing or feeling? He walks to the window, wondering what the day will bring. Does that sound familiar at all? This isn't just you being dramatic. It's called autobiographical reasoning. And it's a really powerful way of making sense of your life as it unfolds. For a mind that's taking in a huge amount of information all the time, creating this ongoing story is how you find meaning, structure your experiences, and build a solid sense of who you are. Oh, this one is a big one. You go online to look up one simple little fact, and suddenly 3 hours have vanished, and you're now a world-class expert on something completely random. This habit of diving down these informational rabbit holes is often seen as a lack of focus, but the psychology tells a very different story. This is actually a classic sign of having a high need for cognition. That's just a fancy way of saying you don't want the easy surface-level answer. You are driven by a deep desire to understand the whole system, to see how everything connects. So those rabbit holes, they aren't distractions. They are genuine explorations fueled by a curious and incredibly thorough mind. And for our final habit, is your desk absolutely covered in sticky notes? Do you have stacks of notebooks filled with random ideas, lists, and thoughts? Are you constantly jotting things down just to get them out of your head? Now, a lot of people think this means you have a bad memory. No way. It's the exact opposite. It's a brilliant strategy called cognitive offloading. Your mind is smart enough to know that your working memory can only hold so much. So by writing things down, you're basically outsourcing the storage, and that frees up precious mental space you can then use for what your mind does best, seeing the big picture and thinking creatively.
So now that we've looked at all these individual signs, let's just pull back for a second and look at the bigger picture. Because these aren't just a random collection of quirks. They actually form a cohesive system, the unique architecture of your mind. And here's a simple little framework you can use in your own life. It's just 3 steps. First, just notice the habit, but without any judgment. Second, try to understand the process behind it. Is it simulation? Is it cognitive offloading? And then third, learn to really appreciate it as a valuable trait, as a tool your mind is using for a reason. And that right there is the key takeaway. Talking to yourself, pacing, getting lost in rabbit holes, they're all part of this integrated, highly effective cognitive toolkit. They are the unique methods your brain has developed to master a complex world, both inside and out. So, that brings us to our final and honestly most important section. After understanding the what and the why of all this, what do you do next? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You embrace it. Your way of thinking is not a problem that needs to be solved. It is the very engine that powers your best qualities. The mind that runs those mental simulations, that's an empathetic mind. The one that explores rabbit holes, that's an insightful mind. These are not your flaws. They are your superpowers. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. When you stop seeing these habits as weird quirks and start seeing them as the actual blueprints of your mind's unique architecture, everything changes. The only real question left is, now that you know, what incredible things are you going to build with it? Thanks for watching.